All right, I'm going to demonstrate for you in my digital science narrative how to do this with a screencast recording on my iPhone. Most of us have this, and you also can do it on an Android device. I'm using the app Go Record, and I'll show you a little bit of how to do this. So after swiping up at the bottom, it goes into your controls. I'm going to go back to the home screen here, and then just zip over to my Google Drive and pull up my digital science narrative, do a little presentation from this device, and I'll get going. So I have titled mine A Journey to Discover Creativity, and as I started to think about this, it really was kind of my journey in the area of sciences, where I sort of discovered this creativity that I did not think I had. So the images that I chose to select on this first one, on the left, represent one of the very few science experiments that I actually recall from elementary school. And as I thought about it, I thought, okay, well, this is either in first grade or third grade. And then I started doing it, and I thought maybe it was second grade, not quite sure. So I really didn't have strong experiences going through this, and I think that is part and parcel of what I remember and what that primary grade experience was for me. So the bean experiment was pretty common. I remember doing this when I was started teaching too, back in 7th grade classroom. So on the right hand side is an image of really my experience now, kind of in hindsight, as to what I did with science and kind of my first introduction to creativity. This image represents my grandfather's basement, and he was really, in my mind, the first person that I knew as a tinkerer or as a kind of old-fashioned makerspace. And he had all kinds of stuff down there, every tool that I could imagine, and it was dusty and dirty, and he was always creating things. He worked with my father, and so my father kind of represented this a little bit to me as well, but he was more of the muscle. My grandfather was the brains behind their operation, and they created a lot together, and I was exposed to it. I didn't really realize what it was at the time, but now in hindsight kind of understand a little bit more what Grandpa's basement means to me. All right. See if I can get this to go to the next slide. All right, so my elementary science experience that I can recall was in 4th grade, and I know it was in 4th grade. I remember the teacher and the events, and very clearly the day, because we were tasked with making a paper bridge, not something that is uncommon even today. And we had a plethora of triangles in that class, because I think we must have learned about the strength of triangles right before that, and so we all had these triangle bridges of some sort. And then I had a friend who was not the, I guess perceived to be the, smartest kid in the class, but he was clever. He was really, good student, but he came in and he had this bridge that had this strange thing on the bottom of it, this substructure. And I had no idea what it was. It looked like it was like, why did you put that in there? There's no point to it. Well, he proceeded to have a bridge that held 10 times the mass of anybody else. And so I was like struck by this. Now, my buddy Rob, he couldn't explain why he did this or what the purpose was, and really throughout his educational career could never really articulate that. I guess no surprise, he did not go into education, but he is now a very successful engineer. But very brilliant, really creative, but didn't really have that ability to kind of communicate it to others. So I was amazed by this. Then I went off to university, a few years in between there, but I had learned to play the game. I was really good at it. I did what I needed to do. I filled in the crossword puzzles, did the vocabulary, made the calculations. There wasn't any of those kind of tasks that I was not good at, and I did that. So then I stepped onto campus and I met this professor who was everything that I did not think a chemistry professor was. Not white lab coat, old gray beard, although he is a little gray in here. Back in that day, it was really his first appointment. This is Dr. Stephen Matchett, and Dr. Stephen Matchett was a specialist in organometallic chemistry. I had no idea what organometallic chemistry was. Didn't understand it, didn't know it existed. I thought metals did certain things and only certain things, and here was this kind of crazy guy teaching me chemistry and had this, research that he was doing. So you can see the bonds that are going on at the top in the white. That's kind of the craziness, and then my simplistic understanding of the chemistry was more of the the Dracula balloon bottle. So I was asked for some reason, probably because I was a pretty dutiful student, to do research for him after my freshman year in college. And it scared me to death. I didn't think I could do it. I had no idea what it was. I didn't think I had the creativity, and I chickened out. I said no, and instead I spent my summer giving tours on sand dunes on ATVs. Not exactly, career building, but it was, not fun either. But I didn't learn about organometallics that summer because I didn't take that risk, and I didn't think I had the ability to. So then I started teaching. I was pretty much a hands-on guy. It was in the movement where we were trying to get messy and get the kids excited about it. But I learned very, very quickly throughout my career that I didn't really teach with a lot of creativity, and I didn't teach with a lot of emphasis on learning. I was a really good party planner, event planner, kept things interesting in class, but there was no real narrative around the learning. And that kind of changed back in the spring of 2005, and I learned in a kind of uncomfortable way that I was doing things in my classroom that were having really no influence on student learning at all. So it didn't really matter if I had taught them physics or whatever, they didn't learn it. And so that was kind of eye-opening, and it sent me on a journey of kind of changing some of the pedagogy, and then as NGSS came in, I think we were ready for that, or I was ready for it. And so here it is today. I've been blessed to have experiences from elementary school summer and seeing those creativity and trying to get the earliest learners to college age, and of course most of my work at the high school. There are some amazing grand challenges around this work, and it has given me an opportunity to be creative around this. I'm not, going to be a PhD chemist, but I have had a chance to be creative in my educational work and learn a little bit more about the science, and have been blessed to work with people who are really passionate about teaching and learning. And so that's sort of where I'm at in my digital narrative, and how I came to a place now in my career where I feel like I am creative. I feel a lot more confident. And it is so much more enjoyable to work because there's kind of that underlying purpose to what I'm doing. All right, back to my home screen at the end of that, and